This is Vergil's Aeneid, translated into English by Robert Fitzgerald. Book 5. Cutting through waves blown dark by a chill wind, Aeneas held his ships firmly on course for a mid-sea crossing. But he kept his eyes upon the city far astern, now bright with poor Alyssa's pyre. What caused that blaze remained unknown to watchers out at sea, but what they knew of a great love profaned in anguish and a desperate woman's nerve led every Trojan heart into foreboding. When they had gained the offing east and north, no land in sight now, but sky everywhere, and everywhere the sea, a thunderhead, towered above them, bringing gloom and storm with shuddering dusky water. Aeneas's helmsman, Palinurus, called from his high stern deck, "Why have these clouds massed on the height of heaven? Father Neptune, what are you brewing for us?" On this he made the seamen shorten sail and bend to the oars. He trimmed his fluttering canvas more to catch the wind, and said, "Aeneas, Lord Commander, even if Jupiter should pledge his word for it, I could not hope to make landfall on Italy in this weather. It's thickening up, and now the wind blows hard out of the murky west abeam of us. No bucking it. We cannot make our northing. Seeing that fortune has the upper hand, I say give in, and follow where she calls. No long reach eastward, there's a loyal coast, I think, the land named for your brother Eryx, and the Sicilian ports, if I remember rightly my star heights and my miles at sea." The good commander said, "For some time now, I've noticed what the veering wind demands, and how you fought it uselessly. Change course! Haul yards and sails around. Could any soil be more agreeable to me or any, where I would rather moor these tired ships, than Sicily, home of my Dardan friend Acestes, and the ashes of my father." With this exchange, they headed east for port, the west wind in their sails. On a following swell the fleet ran free, and happily at last they turned in toward the shoreline that they knew. Far off now, on a high hilltop, Acestes wondered to see his guest's fleet coming in, then hurried down, spiny with javelins, wearing a Libyan she-bear's hide. Acestes, born of a Trojan mother to the river god Crinisus. As he knew and prized his parentage, he welcomed their return, treated them to the riches of the fields, and comforted with friendship weary men. When the next day at dawn the brightening sky made the stars fade, Aeneas called his crews together from all quarters of the shore, and spoke out from a built-up rostrum. "Sons of Dardanus, in the high line of gods, the months are spent, the rounding year fulfilled, since we interred my godlike father's bones, and mourned and blessed his altars. And if I am not mistaken, now that day has come which I shall hold in bitterness and honor all my life. Gods, you would have it so. Were I today exiled in Libyan sands, or caught at sea off Argos, or detained in walled Mycenae, still I should carry out my anniversary vows and ceremonies, heaping the altars as I should with offerings. But now, beyond all expectation, here we stand beside his ashes and his bones, and surely not, I think, without the great god's will and contrivance, carried here off course to enter kindly havens. Come then, everyone, we'll celebrate this holiday in joy. Let us ask for propitious winds, and when our city is laid out, our temples blessed in Father's honor, may he grant each year that I perform this ritual. Trojan-born Acestes gives each ship 2 head of oxen. Welcome the hearth gods to the feast, our own and those our host Acestes cherishes. Then, too, if, as we trust, 9 days from now, dawn lifts for mortals her dear light and bears the world with sun rays, I shall plan and hold contests for Trojans. First, a ship race. Then we'll see who wins at running, who stands out in pride of strength at javelin and archery, who dares to fight with rawhide on his hands. May all compete for prizes and the palm. Now, silence all, garland your brows with leaves. At this he shaded his own brows with myrtle, loved by his mother. Helymus did the same, Acestes, ripe with age, the boy, Ascanius, and all the young men followed suit. Aeneas left the assembly now and made his way with many thousands to the funeral mound, walking amid the crowd. Once there, he poured the ritual libations, 2 of wine, 2 of fresh milk, and 2 of victim's blood, then cast down purple mourning flowers and said, I greet and bless you, sacred Father, bless you, ashes and shade and soul, paternal soul, I vainly rescued once. It was not given me, with you beside me, to explore the coasts and plains of Italy, nor to discover, whatever it may be, Ausonian Tiber. So far he had proceeded in his speech, when from the depths of mound and shrine a snake came huge and undulant with 7 coils, enveloping the barrow peaceably and gliding on amid the altars. Azure flecks mottled his back, a dappled sheen of gold set all his scales ablaze, as when a rainbow on the clouds facing the sun throws out 1,000 colors. Aeneas paused, amazed and silent, while deliberately the snake's long column wound among the bowls and polished cups, browsing the festal dishes, and, from the altars where he fed, again slid harmlessly to earth below the tomb. Now all the more intent, the celebrant took up again his father's ritual, uncertain whether he should think the snake the local god, the genius of the place, or the attendant spirit of his father. He sacrificed a pair of sheep, a pair of swine, a pair of heifers with black hides, then poured out shallow bowls of wine and called the ghost of great Anchises, the death shade released from Acheron. Then his companions, each to his capacity, brought in their own glad offerings. They piled the altars, knifed the beasts, placed cauldrons on the fires, and at their ease upon the grass raked up live coals under the spits to broil the flesh. In due course came the awaited day. The shining sun's team brought a 9th and cloudless dawn. Acestes' influence roused the neighboring folk, and now in happy groups they thronged the shore to see Aeneas' men, or to compete. But first the prizes were set out on view, midfield, blessed tripods, fresh green crowns and palms, rewards for winners, armor too, and robes infused with crimson dye, gold bars, and silver. Next, from a central eminence, a trumpet sang out for the opening of the games. The well-matched entrants in the first event were heavy-oared ships, 4 from the whole fleet. Menestheus's eager oarsmen drove the sea beast. Menestheus of Italy he soon would be, from whose name came the clan of Memmius. Then Gyas captained the Chimera, huge in length and weight, big as a town afloat, which Dardan oarsmen in 3 tiers drove onward, surging together at 3 banks of oars. Then he, for whom the Sergian house was named, Sergestus, rode the great centaur. Cloanthus, from whom your family came, Roman Cluentius, rode out in the sea-blue Scylla. Out at sea, well off the foaming beach, there is a rock, submerged and beaten by high seas at times, when northwest winds in winter hide the stars. But in calm weather it stands quietly above the unmoving water, a level perch and happy sunning place for gulls. Aeneas made a green goal here with an ilex bough, wishing well marked for sailors in his charge the point where they should turn and double back on the long course. Now they drew lots for places, captains erect upon the sterns, their gold and splendid crimson gleaming far around. The crews, for their part, garlanded with poplar, bare to the waist, glistened with rubbing oil, well settled on their planks, reaching ahead to oar halves, listening hard for the starting call. Throbbing excitement seemed to void their hearts, all beating high in appetite for glory. Then as the brilliant trumpet gave its note, they all surged forward from the starting line, no lagging. Heaven echoed shouts, and the channels under the crewmen's pulling turned to foam. Abreast they cleft their furrows, all the sea torn up by oar strokes and the biting prows. The racing cars in a 2-horse chariot race are not so headlong to consume the field once they have left the barriers, not though the charioteers shake out the rippling reins to give head to the teams, and hang above them, bent to the whip. Then with applause and cheers and partisan shouts the wooded landscape rang, the shores embayed, rolled the sound back and forth, and the reverberant hills gave back the din. Amid the turbulence, the leader now, racing ahead from the very start, was Gyas. Close on him came Cloanthus, better served by oarsmen, but his ship's weight slowed him up. Behind them at an equal interval, the sea beast and the centaur vied for third. And now the sea beast had it, now the mighty centaur took the lead, now both together, prows on a line, with their long keels ploughed up the salt sea water. As they all came near the offshore rock, the halfway mark, the leader, Gyas, hailed Menoetes at the tiller. "Why keep so far to starboard, man? This way! Hug shore, making the turn! What if the oar blades graze the rock to port? Let others sheer off wide to seaward." Heedless in his fear of a hidden ledge, Menoetes swung the prow toward the open sea. Gyas again cried out, "Now why bear off? Stick to the rocks, Menoetes!" At that instant, looking back, he saw Cloanthus just behind on the inner track. Between the ship of Gyas and the rocks, he shaved his way to port, then suddenly shot past him at the turn and got away into safe water, leaving the mark behind. Young Gyas flared up now, ablaze to the bottom of his soul with indignation, and tears wetted his cheeks. Without a thought for dignity or the safety of his crew, he tossed cautious Menoetes overboard into the sea. Then he himself as steersman took the tiller, and as captain cheered his oarsmen as he swung the rudder over, heading for shore. When heavy old Menoetes slowly at last emerged from the sea bottom, drenched and streaming, up he climbed and sat atop the dry ledge. Trojans had laughed to see his plunge, his swimming, and now laughed again as he coughed up sea water from his chest. The two behind, to Mnestheus and Sergestus, the happy thought of had come of passing Gyas. Now he had lost speed, and Sergestus led, nearing the rock, though not by a full boat length, for Sea Beast by her prow came up alongside. Mnestheus on his catwalk fore and aft between the oarsmen urged them on. Now pull! Pull for it! Great Hector's companions in arms, chosen in Troy's last hour for my crew. Now bring to bear the strength and nerve you showed in Gaetulian Syrtes, in the Ionian Sea, in the assaulting waves off Malea. Not for the first, not for the victory now, am I, Mnestheus, contending, though I wish, but let the winners be your choices, Neptune, only to come in last. Ah, that's shameful. Fellows, win just this, keep us from that disgrace. They stretched ahead for strokes and pulled their hearts out, making the beaked hull shake at every stroke, and sheets of sea were yanked, it seems, from under them. Panting racked them dry-mouthed, and the sweat ran down in streams. But actually, chance brought them the wished-for glory. As Sergestus in his wild zeal entered the danger zone and turned his prow in toward the rock, his luck failed, and he struck on an outlying reef. A grinding blow, oars shivered, hitting rock, and the hull hung tipped up where it went aground. With a loud shout the sailors heaved together, backing water, then brought boat-hooks out and pikes, retrieving cracked oars from the sea. Mnestheus, meanwhile, more ardent for his luck, with his fast oars in line, the wind behind him, took the shoreward leg through open water. As a wild dove, when startled into flight, beats her affrighted way over the fields, a dove whose coat and tender nestlings lie in a rock cranny, with fast clapping wings, but soon in quiet air goes floating on with wings extended motionless. Just so, Mnestheus, just so, the sea beast cleft the sea, running for the home stretch, and just so she glided, borne by her own impetus. Sergestus was the first she left behind, pitted against the ledge in shallow water with pointless cries for help, learning the trick of boat racing with broken oars. Ahead, the then sea beast closed with Gyas's huge chimera, that soon, for lack of helmsman, fell away. Now in the home stretch only one was left, Cloanthus. In his track, with might and main, Mnestheus pressed on, and now the shouts from shore grew twice as loud as all the watching crowd cheered for Mnestheus, filling the air with din. One crew fought off the shame of losing honor, theirs already, glory won. They'd give their lives for fame, but luck empowered the others who felt that they could do it, and so could. The prows now even, they were close indeed to winning, had Cloanthus not stretched out his hands to seaward, and in bursts of prayer called on the gods to hear his vows. O gods, whose power is on the deep sea, and whose waves I'm racing over, I shall place with joy a snow-white bull before your altars here upon this shore, in payment of my vow, and fling the parts into the sea, and pour a stream of wine. Under the depth of water, all the Nereids, Phorcys's company, and virgin Panopea heard his prayer, and Father Portunus, the harbor god, with his great hand impelled the Scylla onward. Swifter than a gust out of the east, or arrow on the wing, she ran for land, and took her place in the deep harbor. Then, when all were called together, Anchises' son proclaimed by the loud crier Cloanthus winner, and veiled his temples with green bay. Moreover, to each contending ship he gave a choice of bullocks, 3 to each, with wine and 1 great bar of silver to be borne away. Additional rewards went to the captains: a cloak, woven with gold thread for the winner, bordered with a meander's double line of Meliboean crimson. Pictured there, a royal boy amid the bows of Ida, running with javelin, tiring out swift ear, so lifelike in the chase he seemed to pant. Then Jove's big bird, his weapon carrier, whisked him aloft from Ida in his talons, while aged guardians held out their hands into heaven in vain, and wild hounds barked at air. To him whose valor won him second place, a triple shirt of mail close wrought with links of polished gold, a trophy of Aeneas's victory over Demoleus near the river Simois, under Troy's high wall. This shirt Aeneas gave to Mnestheus as an honor and as protection in the wars to come. Phegeus and Sagaris, his body servants, could barely carry all its folds, on shoulders braced for it, though, in other days, Demoleus in this shirt and on the run had harried straggling Trojans. The third prize Aeneas gave was a pair of brazen cauldrons and silver cups embossed in high relief. All now rewarded, proud of their rich things, beribboned, garlanded, they were going off, when back from the rude rock, barely dislodged by every skill, limping with missing oars, on one oar bank, comedian Sergestus brought his long craft ingloriously in. Often you'll see a snake on a high road a fellowed wheel has run obliquely over, or a pedestrian with a heavy stone has torn and left half dead. To get away, it sets in motion its long coils, in part still dangerous, with blazing eyes and rearing hissing head, in part immobilized by the crippling wound, writhing upon itself. So sluggish under oars the ship moved on. But then she hoisted sail and entered harbor under full sail. Glad for the rescued ship and crew, Aeneas gave the promised gift, a slave woman who knew Minerva's craft, the Cretan Pholoe with nursing twins. Now that the ship race had been run, Aeneas walked to a grassy field that wooded hills curved all around, a vale, and an arena. There, with a crowd of thousands, the great captain betook himself and took a central place, a seat on a platform. Now he called on those whom hope for gain led to compete in running, and set out prizes for them. From all sides they came up, Teucrians with Sicilians mixed, Nisus and Euryalus in the lead. Euryalus, exceptional for beauty and bloom of youth, whom Nisus dearly loved. Next came Diores of the royal line of Priam. Then together Salius and Patron, this one an Acarnanian, the other from Arcadia, a Tegean. Then 2 Sicilians, Helymus and Panopes, men of the woods, henchmen of old Acestes, and many more whose names are in the dark. Aeneas spoke among them. Be aware of this now. Bear it happily in mind. Not one goes off without a gift from me. 2 Cretan arrows shod in polished steel, and a double-bladed axe inlaid in silver await each one of you, the same reward. Then prizes go to the first 3 finishers with pale green olive garlands. He who wins will get a horse, fully caparisoned. The runner-up, an Amazonian quiver full of Thracian arrows, and a strap of broad gold, buckled with a well-cut gem. As for the third place winner, Let him go, contented with this Argive helm. At this, they towed the line, and when they heard the signal, suddenly given, broke from the starting post and made off on the track like an outriding rack of storm cloud. As they marked the finish, Nisus flashed out, sprinting into the lead faster than gale wind or a bolt of thunder. After him, but far behind, came Salius, and after Salius by a space Euryalus, Helymus next. But close upon him, look, Diores in his flight matched stride with stride, nearing his shoulder. If more track remained, he would have passed him or come up abreast in a dead heat. But in the home stretch now, the tired men were making for the finish when Nisus stumbled by bad luck in gore, a slippery place where beasts had been cut down and blood gushed on the turf, soaking the grass. Elated with the race as good as won, he staggered there and could not hold his feet on the trodden ground, but pitched on it headlong in the mire and blood of offerings. Though beaten, this man did not forget Euryalus, his beloved, but surging from the spot of slipperiness, he tripped up Salius, and he in turn went tumbling head over heels to lie flat, as Euryalus flashed past by his friend's help, running to win first place amid applause and cheers. Then Helymus came in, and then Diores, third place now. At this point the whole banked assemblage rang with Salius's clamor, facing the front row elders for the honor stolen from him by a foul. The crowd's support and his own quiet tears were in Euryalus' favor, prowess evermore winning for a handsome form. Diores backed him with loud protestations, having won third place all in vain if the first prize went back to Salius. Then fatherly Aeneas said, "Your prizes stand as they are, young fellows. There will be no change by anyone in the winning order. Let me console a blameless friend's bad luck." With this he gave a Gaetulian lion's hide with shaggy mane and gilded claws to Salius. Nisus now said, "Well, if losers get rewards as great as that, and you console a fall with proper gift, what will you give Nisus then? First prize, the crown, is what I earned by rights, had fortune not opposed me, taken me out as it did Salius." While he spoke, he showed his face and body all befouled with mire. Smiling at Nisus, fatherly Aeneas ordered a shield brought out, Didymaon's work, removed once by Danaans from a portal sacred to Neptune. This exceptional prize he gave to the conspicuous runner. After the races had been held and prizes given, "Now," said Aeneas, "anyone who has a fighting heart and fortitude, step forward. Put up your hands for the encasing hide." He set a double prize then for the boxing, a bullock for the winner dressed with gold and snowy wool, a sword and a choice helm as comfort for the beaten man. Straightway, without an instant's pause in his huge power, Dares got up amid the murmurous crowd, the one man who had held his ground with Paris, the man, too, who knocked out the champion Butes, beside the burial mound where Hector lies. Butes, a giant boxer, bragged of coming from the Bebrycian line of Amycus, but Dares stretched him half dead on the sand. So powerful, the man reared up his head for combat, showed his shoulders' breadth, his reach with left and right, threw punches at the air. Who would fight him? Among all those men, not one dared put the leather on his hands. Thinking all had withdrawn, yielding the prize, he took his stance before Aeneas's feet, and made no bones of grasping the bull's horn in his left hand, and saying, "Son of the goddess, if no one dares commit himself to boxing, how long must I stand here? How long may I properly be kept waiting? Say the word, and I lead off the prize." Then all the Dardans murmured, "Let the man have what was promised." Acestes, though, had hard words for Entellus, sitting beside him on a couch of turf. "Entellus, what price now that in the old days you were our strongest fighting man? Will you sit here so meek and let a prize like that be carried off without a fight? Where now is our god Eryx, whom you call your teacher, but let down in the end? What of your fame through all Trinacria, and the booty hung about your hall?" Entellus softly answered, "Not that love of honor, or appetites, or glory have given way, beaten by fear. I'm slowed by age. My blood runs feebly now, without heat, and my strength is spent. My body, muscle bound. Had I that youth again that I had once, and that this arrogant fellow counts on, I would need no setting on, no prize, no pretty steer, to make me beat him. Gifts don't concern me." After saying this, he tossed into the ring a pair of gauntlets, monstrously heavy, which the fighter Eryx used to bind on his forearms and hands, hard rawhide. And the crowd looked on amazed, so huge they were, of 7 ox hides, barred with lead and iron sewn to stiffen them. Dares himself stared more than anyone, and moved away reluctant for a bout. Meanwhile, Anchises' great-souled son picked up and tried the gauntlets, turning their rolled-up weight this way and that. The veteran Entellus now spoke up in his deep voice. "What then, if anyone had seen Hercules' gloves and the grim fight here on this very shore? These were the armor worn by your own brother Eryx. Even now you see them stained with blood and spattered brains. In these at last he faced the great Alcides, and in these I used to fight, while hotter blood sustained me, and age had not won out as yet, or scattered snow on my brow. But if this Trojan, Dares, refuses our equipment, if Aeneas in fairness so decides, and my proponent Acestes nods, we'll equalize the fight. Here, I give up the rockside gloves of Eryx. Breathe easier. Pull off your Trojan gloves." He threw the double mantle from his shoulders, bared his great arms and legs, all thew and bone, and took his stand, gigantic, in the arena. Now with paternal care Anchises' son brought gauntlets of the same weight out to tie on both men's hands. Then instantly each in his stance moved on his toes, and put his fists high in air, holding his head well back out of the range of blows. They sparred with rights and lefts, each trying to sting the other into unguarded fighting. One had speed of footwork and elan of youth, the other giant mass and brawn, but his slow knees quivered and buckled, painful gasping shook him, huge as he was. Often they punched and missed, often they hit, thudding on flanks and ribs, or making chests resound. Then flurrying punches pummeled ears and temples, and their jaws would crunch at every solid blow. Entellus gravely stood in the same unshifting stance, watchful to roll with punches or to slip them. Dares, like one assaulting a tall city, or laying siege to a stronghold on a height, tried this approach, then that, explored the ground on all sides cleverly, came in from various angles, all to no avail. Then surging up, Entellus poised his right and threw it, but the other, in his quickness, saw the blow descending, and just in time slipped out from under. All Entellus' force being spent on air, by his own impetus the mighty man fell mightily to earth, as ponderously as, from time to time, a hollow and uprooted pine will fall on Erymanthus or on the range of Ida. Teucrians and Sicilians in their rivalry rose together as a shout went up, and, running out, Acestes was the first to help the old man, his contemporary, up from the ground. Now neither hurt and slowed or shaken by the fall, the fighting man returned to combat hotter than before, his power excited by his anger. Shame roused him too, in his own sense of manhood, so that he went for Dares, driving him headlong over the ring, redoubling cuffs, with right and left alike, no pause, no rest, as thick and fast as hail, drumming on roofs in a big storm, where the old hero's blows with both hands battering and spinning Dares. Fatherly Aeneas would not sit by while this fury went further. So berserk Entellus was in the rancor of his soul. He stopped the fight and saved bone-weary Dares, saying to comfort him, "Poor fellow, how could rashness take you this way? Don't you feel a force now more than mortal is against you? And heaven's will is changed? Oh, we'll bow to that." So speaking loudly, he broke off the battle, and loyal shipmates took Dares in hand, weak-kneed, his head wobbling from side to side, spitting out teeth mixed in with gobs of blood. They led him to the ships, and then, recalled, received the helm and sword, leaving the palm and bulwark for Entellus. The old champion, glorying in his courage and his prize, spoke out, "Son of the goddess, Teucrians all, now see what power was in me in my prime, and see the death from which you rescued Dares." He set himself to face the bull that stood there, prize of the battle, then drew back his right, and from his full height lashed his hard glove out between the horns. The impact smashed the skull and fragmented the brains. Down went the ox, a quiver to sprawl dying on the ground. The man stood over it and in deep tones proclaimed, "Here is a better life in place of Dares. Eryx, here I lay down my gauntlets and my art." Immediately after this, Aeneas invited all so minded to contend with speeding arrows, and he set the prizes. A mast out of Serestus's ship he raised with his own giant hand, and at the top tethered a dove upon a cord as target for them to shoot at. When they gathered round a bronze helm, took their lots. First shaken out and greeted by his partisans with cheers was Hippocoon, son of Hyrtacus. Then Mnestheus, second place winner in the ship race, wearing his olive garland. And the third was Eurytion, brother to you, illustrious Pandarus, who in another day, when given command to break the truce, led off with a bow-bent arrow shot amid the Achaeans. The last one out, deep in his helm, Acestes, he too ventured to try the young man's feat. Now with stout arms they flexed their bows, each man hefting his own before him, and then drew their shafts from quivers. Right across the sky, as the bowstrings twanged, the first winged arrow shot by the son of Hyrtacus, whipped through the air to strike, and then stayed fixed in the mast timber. The long pole trembled, and the terrified bird fluttered as all the place rang with applause. Now Mnestheus took his eager stand, bow bent, and aimed his gaze and full-drawn arrow high, but by hard luck he missed the bird herself. His steel point cut the flaxen cord by which, tied to her foot, the bird hung from the mast. Away she soared into the south wind, white against dark clouds. In a flash Eurytion, long ready with his bow bent, arrow drawn, and whispering to his archer brother's shade, as he tracked the dove delighting in open sky with clapping wings, now put his arrow through her under a black cloud. Down she plummeted, and left her life in the upper air of stars, but brought down with her the transfixing shaft. Only Acestes now remained, although The prize escaped him. Still he bent his bow and shot into the air, showing them all his old-time archer's power and bow that sang. But here before their startled eyes appeared an omen of great import. Afterward, mighty events made it all clear, and poets far in the future fabled it in awe. The arrow flying in thin cloud caught fire and left a track of flame until, burnt out, it vanished in the wind, as shooting stars will often slip away across the sky, trailing their blown hair. Everyone stood still and thunderstruck with prayer to heaven's powers, Trinacrians and Teucrians alike. Aeneas's great soul soon embraced the sign, embraced joyous Acestes, loaded him with handsome gifts, and said, "Here, take them, father. You are the one the great king of Olympus wished by these auspices to be distinguished apart from others. You shall have this gift that in his age had been Anchises' own, a mixing bowl engraved that Chryseis of Thrace once gave my father, a princely thing, to keep as reminder and pledge of love." With this he bound Acestes' brows with laurel, proclaiming him the winner before all, preferment never grudged by that good fellow Eurytion, though he alone had brought the dove down from the sky. Third place winner, he who cut the cord, came forward next for his reward, and last came he who fixed his arrow in the timber of the mast. But even before the finish of this contest, Aeneas called aside Epetides, bodyguard and companion of young Iülus, and spoke into his ear, "Go out and tell Ascanius, if he has the boy's troop ready here along with him and has his maneuvers planned for the horses, tell him to lead them on for grandfather these squadrons, and to let himself be seen in arms." Aeneas now commanded the whole crowd to withdraw from the long track and open up the plain field. Then came the riders, boys in even ranks, all shining before their parents' eyes, all mounts in hand, and, as they passed, admiring murmurs rose from men of Sicily and men of Troy. The troopers had their hair smartly pressed down by well-trimmed wreaths. Each had a pair of lances made of cornel, tipped with steel. Some shoulders bore glossy quivers. All wore twisted gold in a pliant necklace on the upper chest. There were 3 squadrons, 3 commanders weaving right and left. Behind each one there came 2 files of 6 boy riders, an open column, bright in the sun, and a trainer to each column. Number 1 squadron gloried in its leader, little Priam, who bore his grandsire's name, your noble son, Polites, and a destined sire of Italians, riding a Thracian mount with dappling of white pasterns, and upon his haughty brow a snow-white blaze. Atys had command of the 2nd squadron, from whom the Latin Atii have their name. Small Atys, cherished boy to boy by Iülus. Third and last and handsomest of all came Iülus, riding a Sidonian mount given him by the glowing beauty Dido, to be a keepsake and a pledge of love. The other troopers rode Sicilian horses of old Acestes. Dardans with applause now greeted the shy boys and loved their show, marking in each the features of his forebears. After the troop had circled the assembly before their families' eyes, Epetides from the wings shouted an order prearranged and cracked his whip. The column split apart as files in 3 squadrons, all in line, turned away, cantering left and right. Recalled, they wheeled and dipped their lances for a charge. They entered then on parades and counter-parades, the 2 detachments matched in the arena, winding in and out of one another, and whipped into sham cavalry skirmishes by bearing backs in flight, then whirling round with levelled points, then patching up a truce and riding side by side. So intricate in ancient times on mountainous Crete, they say, the labyrinth between walls in the dark ran crisscross a bewildering thousand ways devised by guile, a maze insoluble, breaking down every clue to the way out. So intricate the drill of Trojan boys, who wove the patterns of their pacing horses, figured in sport, retreats, and skirmishes like dolphins in the drenching sea, Carpathian or Libyan, that sheer through waves in play. This mode of drill, this mimicry of war, Ascanius brought back in our first years when he walled Alba Longa, and he taught the ancient Latins to perform the drill, as he had done with other Trojan boys. The Albans taught their children, and in turn great Rome took up this glory of the founders. The boys are called Troy now, the whole troop Trojan. Rites for Aeneas's father had reached this point when fortune now first altered and betrayed them. While they were honoring the tombs with games, Saturnian Juno sent her Iris down from heaven, exhaling winds to waft her far to the Trojan fleet. Juno had plans afoot, her ancient rancor not yet satisfied, so Iris glided on the colored rainbow, seen by none, swift goddess, on her way. She sighted the great crowd, then scanned the shore, saw ports deserted and ships unattended. But on a desolate beach apart, the women wept for Anchises lost as they gazed out in tears at the unfathomable sea. How many waves remain for us to cross? How broad a sea, though we are weary, weary? All had one thing to say. A town and home were what they dreamed of, sick of toil at sea. Taking her cue, darting into their midst, adept at doing ill, Iris put off her aspect as a goddess and her gown to take the form of aged Beroe, wife of Timarian Doriclus, blessed with noble birth, a name at Troy, and children. In this guise she advances among the mothers. "Miserable women that we are," she said, "whom no Achaean hand dragged out to death under the walls of our old fatherland. Unlucky nation, for what final blow is fortune keeping you alive? We've seen the seventh summer since the fall of Troy, and all these years we have been driven on by land and sea, by hostile rocks and stars, to measure the great water in our quest for Italy, an Italy that recedes while we endure the roll of the sea swell. Here is the land of Eryx, our old brother. Here is the host, Acestes, who prevents our building here a town for town dwellers, country of our fathers, dear hearth gods, rescued from the enemy to no end. Will never a wall be called the wall of Troy? Shall I not see on earth Simois and Xanthus, Hector's rivers? Come now, all of you, set fire to those infernal ships with me. I dreamed the clairvoyant Cassandra came with burning torches, offering them, saying, "Here you may look for Troy, your home is here." Oh, why wait? High time we acted on such portents. See here, Neptune's four altar flames, the god has fire for us. The god will give us courage. Urging them on, she picked a dangerous brand, lifted it high, and swept it into flame and threw it. Taken by surprise, the women stood bewildered. Then one from the crowd, the eldest, Pyrgo, royal governess to Priam's many sons, cried, "Do not take her for Beroe. This is not she, the Rhoetean, wife of Doricles' mothers. Just observe what trait she has of more than mortal beauty. Her blazing eyes, her audacity, her face, her voice, her stride. I tell you, I myself left Beroe just now, and she is ill. Vexed, too, that she alone missed our observance, and paid no tribute to Anchises." Thus Pergo reported to them. Women of Troy, they looked now toward the ships uncertainly with animosity, half in unhappy love of landscapes there before them, half still bound to fated realms calling them onward. And the goddess on strong wings went up to the sky, traversing a great rainbow under clouds. Now truly wrought upon by signs and wonders, wrought to a frenzy, all cried out together, snatching up fire from hearths, despoiling altars, taking dry foliage, brush, and brands to throw. And Vulcan, god of fire, unbridled rage through rowing thwarts and oars and piney hulls. Courier Eumelus brought to Anchises' tomb and the banked theatre news of ships on fire. And looking round, they saw the dark smoke cloud with soaring embers. First to act, Ascanius, as he led his troops rejoicing, now whipped on his horse to reach the mutinous camp, and winded trainers could not hold him back. "What unheard of madness!" the boy shouted. "Where do you intend to go? Poor miserable women of our city! Not the enemy, not the Argive camp, but your own hopes are what you burn. Look here, I am your own Ascanius." And he hurled before their feet his hollow helm put on for the sham battles. Meanwhile, in all haste, Aeneas came, and the Trojan companies. But the women scattered here and there in fear along the beaches, in the woods, wherever they could take cover in rock caves, ashamed to face the daylight, face what they had done. For now they knew their own, and their shocked hearts were free. Not on that account did fires lit by them lose power or yield to counteraction. Under whetted oak the caulking smouldered and exuded smoke, as the great sluggish heat ate into hulls, and the contagion seeped all through the body. Neither men's force nor streams of water poured prevailed on it. Now God-fearing Aeneas rent the shirt upon his shoulders. Throwing wide his hands, he begged high heaven for help. "Almighty Jupiter, unless by now you loathe all Trojans to the last man, if divine kindness shown in ancient days can still pay heed to mortal suffering, grant that our fleet survive this fire, Father, even now. At the last moment save the frail affairs of Trojans from destruction. Otherwise, do what now remains to do with your consuming bolt with your right hand. If I deserve it, blast me and overwhelm us." Scarce had he spoken when a black storm broke in wild fury with spouting rain, while peals of thunder shook the low lands and high places. Down from the whole sky the torrents came in dense murk, black as pitch out of the south. And ships were filled up, half-burnt timbers drenched, till all the fires were out, and all the hulls, except for 4, delivered from the burning. Aeneas had been stunned by the mischance, and could not rest, turning this way and that within him, coping with momentous questions. Should he forget the destiny foretold, and make his home in Sicily, or try again for Italy? Nautes, an older man, and one whom Pallas Tritonia had taught his famous thoughtfulness, she gave him answers as to the meaning of the gods' great wrath, or what the pattern of the fates required. Nautes addressed Aeneas to give him heart.
Sir, born of an immortal, let us follow where our fates may lead or lead us back. Whatever comes, all fortune can be mastered by endurance. You have Acestes, a Dardanian, divine in lineage. Make him your counselor, congenial as he is in all your plans. And now these ships are burnt. Hand over to him the number of those they might have carried. Those too weary of your great quest, your seafaring men who have had long lives, women worn out on shipboard, feeble men afraid of danger, set them apart. Let them have their city here in this land, the tired ones, and they may with permission call their town Acasta.
His old friend's plan attracted him, but still Aeneas wondered, all the more torn between anxieties of all kinds. As now black night, borne upward in her car, possessed the sky, out of the dark from heaven his father's image seemed to float suddenly and speak.
My son, dearer to me than life while life remained, and pitted now against the fates of Troy, I come by Jove's command, who drove away the fire from your ships, being moved to pity in heaven's height at last. Obey the counsel, beautiful as it is, now given by Nautes. Embark for Italy, chosen men, the bravest. In Latium you must battle down in war a hard race, hard by nurture and by training. First, however, visit the underworld, the halls of Dis, and through profound Avernus come to meet me, son. Black Tartarus, with its grim realm of shades, is not my home, but radiant gatherings of godly souls I have about me in Elysium. To that place the pure Sibyl, after blood of many black sheep flows out, will conduct you. Then you will hear of your whole race to come, and what walled town is given you. Farewell! Night passes midway on her wheeling course, and cruel sunrise fanned me with a breath her laboring team exhaled.
And after speaking, he faded like thin smoke into the air. Aeneas cried, "So soon? Where to, then? Must you vanish? Are you taking flight from someone? Who can forbid you to be held by me?" So he called out, then turned to poke the embers, the drowsing fire on his hearth, and paid his humble duty to the law of Troy, and Vesta's shrine, the goddess of the hearth, with ground meal as in ritual sacrifice, and a full incense casket. Then at once he called his captains, told Acestes first of Jove's command as taught by his dear father, and what now stood decided in his mind. No long exchange, no dissent from Acestes. They listed for the town the older women and set aside men so inclined who felt no need of winning honor. The remainder built new thwarts, replaced burnt timbers, fitted oars and rigging. A slim band of men, but brave hearts, keen for war. Meanwhile, Aeneas marked with a plough the limits of the town and gave home sites by lot. One place should be called Ilium, he decreed, one quarter Troy. Acestes, Trojan that he was, took pleasure in his new realm, proclaiming an assembly and giving laws to the Senate now convoked. Then on Mount Eryx's height a shrine was built, hard by the stars to Venus of Idalia, and round about Anchises' tomb they left a hallowed grove with an attendant priest. 9 days the people feasted, and the altars fumed with offerings. Light airs lulled the sea, and blowing often from the south renewed their call to cross the main. A sound of weeping rose on the curving shore, as by a night, and then a day, embracing, they postponed it. Even those women, even those men, to whom the sea's face had seemed harsh, its very name intolerable, now desired to go and bear all exile's toil. Aeneas spoke to them with kindness and commended them in tears to their blood brother Acestes. He decreed 3 calves be slain to Eryx and a lamb to the storm winds. Cables were then cast off, as he himself, wearing an olive garland, standing on the prow apart, held out the shallow cup and flung the vitals down into the salt surf, then poured out the wine. Wind coming up astern blew in their wake as crewmen struck their oars into the swell and swept a path over the sea. But now, beset with worries, Venus turned to Neptune, unfolding from her heart complaints and pleas. "O Juno's anger and her implacable heart drive me to prayers beneath my dignity. No length of time, no piety affects her. Unbroken in will by Jove's commands or fate, she never holds her peace. To have devoured a city from the heart of Phrygia's people in her vile hatred, this was not enough, nor to have dragged the remnant left from Troy through all harassment. Now she harries still Troy's bones and ashes. She alone may know the causes of such madness. You yourself are witness to the giant storm she roused not long ago in the sea off Libya, mixing sea and sky with hurricane winds of Aeolus her stand-by, though in vain, and all this dared in your domain. But look at her new crime, how she egged on the Trojan women to their foul ship burning, making the Trojans, for that loss of ships, forsake their own folk in a strange country. But as to what comes next, I beg you, let them safely entrust their sailing ships to you across the water. Let them reach that stream, Laurentine Tiber, if one may concede these favors, if the Parcae grant their city." The son of Saturn, tamer of the deep, replied, "Cytherea, you have every right to trust my kingdom. You were born from it. Then, too, I merited your trust. So often have I repressed those mad fits and that fury of heavens and the sea. On land as well, as Xanthos and Simois can testify. I cared for your Aeneas. That day Achilles, hot in pursuit, pinned Trojan troops half dead with fright against their walls, and killed a myriad, making the rivers choked with corpses groan. So Xanthus could not find his bed or send his current seaward. Then, as Aeneas fought against the odds, against the frown of heaven, the mighty son of Peleus, it was I who caught and saved him in a sack of cloud. Lust though I did to cast down walls I built with my own hands, walls of oath-breaking Troy. To this day my regard for him is the same. Dispel your fear. He shall, as you desire, enter Avernus port. One shall be lost, but only one to look for, lost at sea. One life given for many." He assured and cheered the goddess in this way, then yoked his team with gold, fitted the foaming bits in their wild mouths, and let the reins run free, flying light on the crests in his blue car. Waves calmed and quieted, the long sea swell smoothed out under his thundering axle-tree, and storm clouds thinned away in heaven's vast air. Now came the diverse shapes of his companions, enormous whales and Glaucus's hoary troop, Palaemon son of Ino, arrowy Tritons, Phorcus's whole host, Thetis and Melite, and virgin Panopea on the left, Nessae, Scipio, Thalia, Cimodoce. The joys of the fair weather filled in turn Aeneas's attentive heart. "Up with the masts!" he ordered. "Sails unfurled from the yardarms!" The seamen, as one man, hurled on the sheets, now port, now starboard, set the bellying canvas evenly to the winds, and took the braces, veering this way and that, yardarms aloft, until the freshening stern winds filled the sails and bore them onward. On the leading ship Palinurus guided the close formation, all under orders to set course by him. Now dewy night had touched her midway mark, or nearly, and the crews, relaxed in peace on their hard rowing benches, took their rest, when Somnus, gliding softly from the stars, put the night air aside, parted the darkness, Palinurus, in quest of you. He brought bad dreams to you in all your guiltlessness. Upon the high poop deck the god sat down in Phorbas's guise and said,
O son of Iasius, Palinurus, the sea itself moves the ship onward. There's a steady breeze. The hour for rest has come. Put down your head and steal a respite for your tired eyes. I'll man your tiller for a while.
But Palinurus barely looked around. He said, "Forget my good sense for this peaceful face the sea puts on, this calm swell? Put my trust in that capricious monster? Or hand over Aeneas to the tricky winds when I have been deceived so often by clear weather?" With this response, he held fast to the helm and would not give it up, but kept his eyes upon the stars. Now see the god, his bow adrip with Lethe's dew, and slumberous with Stygian power, giving it a shake over the pilot's temples to unfix, although he fought it, both his swimming eyes. His unexpected drowse barely begun, Somnus leaned over and flung him down in the clear water, breaking off with him a segment of the stern and steering oar. Head first he went down, calling in vain on friends. The god himself took flight into thin air, but still the fleet ran safely on its course, serene in Father Neptune's promises. Borne onward, now it neared the Siren's Reef, that old-time peril, white with many bones, now loud far off with trample of surf on rock. Here the commander felt a loss of way as his ship's head swung off, lacking a helmsman, and he himself took over, holding course in the night waves. Hard hit by his friend's fate, and sighing bitterly, he said, "Oh, for counting overmuch on a calm world, Palinurus, you must lie naked on some unknown shore."